Hello and welcome to a new series called Doctor Who Reviews. So we're going to have a couple on this one, this channel, which are going to be about classic Doctor Who's, where I'll talk about probably William Hartnell, Patrick Troughton, all the way through probably to the War Doctor, if you're going to count him. But I thought we'll start with William Hartnell, see how long that goes. If worst case scenario, we will just have William Hartnell. Best case scenario, we'll get another Doctor as well. Before I just mess about on this, it's easier to mess about on something where I'm not concentrating fully. I'm just doing a solo playground mode, just destroying a few things, having a look around, testing a few weapons, and go from there. Anyway, first of all, we'll start with the first ever Doctor, and not everybody's cup of tea. Some people like him, some people don't. But you probably wouldn't have been anywhere if it wasn't for. We wouldn't even be where we are now if it wasn't for him. Because he started everything, he gave a fan base. It says it's saying he was ever the best, but he wasn't always. And very much similar to what they were trying to do with Peter Capaldi when he first joined, trying to make him slightly more grumpier and kind of William Hartnell. And yeah, to some extent it worked, and to some extent it didn't. People weren't ready, so they slowly changed Capaldi's character. By his second year, obviously he had the guitar, but especially right at the beginning, it was very much like William Hartnell. As that. Yeah. Very that's what they were going for when they had the bit with Peter Capaldi. Apologies about that. Yeah. Anyway, like, obviously the first ever episode was called Unearthly Child, and it was a really good episode. It was probably like introducing. I had to introduce the Doctor, but it still kept. I mean, really, for a good few years, it kept the mystery of Doctor Who. Even after the first episode, it didn't fully introduce him. You got, as the seasons went on and the years went on, you got a little bit more about the character. And even like with just each Doctor has a different character, obviously. But after the first couple of episodes, you were unsure. A lot of people just said they probably didn't even like the character. But the show itself was a hit. You had he started with his granddaughter Susan. You started with Ian and Barbara, which were two teachers, and basically right at the beginning he kind of kidnaps the two of them. And they're kind of forced onto these dangerous adventures, and you had like the first episode kind of introduced you to him, but after that it was more let's see what that built. Yeah, the first episode kind of introduces him, and they go back and they go like the cavemen times, and It's an interesting episode, and then this is the thing, is it was always meant to be an educational show. It was never, when it was created, it was never created as a Aliens. Yeah, I'll do my housework after. Still got to get that sorted, mate. But I've got a couple of days. I've got 2 days to do it. But it was never meant as a Alien. Sidney Newman, who created it, didn't like the idea of having aliens in it and things like that. He wanted it as let's dance. Yeah, he wanted it so educational. So there was never going to be a monster of the week. It was always going to be like Aztecs, and quite a lot of the episodes did lead to that. Really, they didn't go. Any ones that were going back in time were pretty much dealing with human beings that were evil and not yeah, and they were dealing with human beings and evil of man or in different centuries and not actual aliens. But then the weird thing is that whole idea went flying out the window when they were running through and trying to do episode 2. I mean, back on to episode 1 quickly, it was actually shown, the first episode was shown twice, because it was shown once and it came out, and lucky enough for them, it came out at the same time as I think it was the same day or a couple of days, a day after or something, Kennedy got assassinated. So they Sidney Newman convinced the BBC to show it again, to repeat the episode again on the following week. Because here's a good point: did the first episode? It didn't do particularly brilliantly when it came on, but was it because it was a rubbish idea and people didn't like it, or was it because most people were rightfully fascinated with this news that the President of the United States had been killed? So it was shown and it did really well, and it was proved right. But I think where he got that, the second episode, when they were writing them, they weren't writing everything in a row like they do now and having the whole thing filmed before they should put it on TV. Some of it pretty much was, while the first one was being made, the second one was being made just after. So I think he kind of compromised, and he had to bring in an alien. They thought the BBC kind of got it right in some ways. Sidney Newman was a mastermind, and this idea for the show is brilliant. But what he done is the BBC managed to convince him to bring in aliens, and the second episode, which obviously was Daleks. And Doctor Who really probably wouldn't have survived without that, if I was to be honest. Yes, they overdone the Daleks, and they've done them to death over the years, and even modern Who is guilty of overdoing Dalek stories. Moffat had a few seasons where he managed to make stories without having the Daleks in it, well, as the main bad guy, but because of legal reasons they had to show at least one Dalek every year. But I think having that thing where the Daleks continuously appear takes away some of the mystery, and that's where probably Newman was right. The BBC are right because they needed to have that kind of alien threat and gives it something different. And kids and families over the years don't particularly want to be a full educational programme, and there's only so much of history you can do before it suddenly becomes a bit boring. So yeah, the Monster of the Week idea was, well, probably Monster of the Week was more for past the first Doctor, because it was pretty much the first Doctor. If they went back in time, it was educational. If it was present time or future, it would turn out to be an alien threat, or a different planet, it would be an alien threat. So everybody got their own way, and a franchise was born. I mean, but going back on to William Hartnell, his character isn't loved by a lot of people because he isn't as flamboyant as John Pertwee, not as clownish as Troughton, but there's still something absolutely amazing about him. He's not an idiot. is actually a very smart man. He uses sometimes his age and his frailty to his own advantages. And I think, oh, just 1 minute. Yeah, like Troughton did. He would pretend, and Matt Smith in Futures would do, is that they would act slightly dumber, and it would put people off. But they're both equally, or all equally as good Doctor-wise. The clownish ones, all of them have been good, and they've all portrayed the character, even if they had a slightly different personality. But I mean, even that, when William Hartnell was actually, he never wanted to leave playing the Doctor. He loved it, but it was ill health, and the BBC determination to keep this show going, but basically meant that they had to rejuvenate the show, and they didn't want this kind of James Bond thing where you just randomly change the actor. They wanted to have something like a reason. I mean, the episode Celestial Toymaker was supposed to be originally William Hartnell's final episode, and in all intents and purposes it kind of works as a possible final episode. It's just it's the reason why it wasn't continued, and that wasn't done. They didn't literally keep up that idea, because originally it was supposed to be, there's a scene where the Doctor's invisible, and it was supposed to be that Patrick Troughton would actually appear as the Doctor after that scene. So, but I think what they'd realised is this is fine, but what happens when Patrick Troughton leaves? How are you going to explain, how are you going to change an actor and keep this going if it still continues to do well? So somebody came up with the idea of this process called regeneration, and it hasn't really looked back from there. Regeneration's been going ever since that moment, and it hasn't let up or changed in any bit. Yeah, maybe the look of the regeneration might have advanced over the years, but it's always been one actor becomes another actor. That's it. That's yeah, one actor becomes another actor, and that's always been the case with it. Oh, so that's how you do that. Anyway, we'll put that down because I'll start bouncing around too high. But yeah, one becomes, oh for God's sake, I did it. Yeah, one becomes another, and then that's it. That's always been the absolute plan of action. To have it like that. That's not overheating. Yeah, it's always been the plan to have this whole idea of when they decided that, like, let's just do this and regenerate and have this regeneration thing. But even up to that point, that was only the real point where you thought, right, 100% you were given that kind of thing where maybe the Doctor is alien. That all the way through the first William Hartnell's brain. It was never really specifically said he's an alien. It could have been, firstly, it could be an alien, or it could be just someone from the future. Maybe time travel allowed the future. It was only up until, it was only up until, I think, Patrick Troughton was the first of the Doctors that actually, to be And it gave you that feeling, obviously, that it's an alien once it regenerated at the end of time. But you didn't know where he was from, even... I don't think even... under the Patrick Troughton's reign, it was fully explained why Doctor was who the Doctor was, or who his people were. I think it's the first Doctor, it's truly said, like, these people are so-and-so. Quite an interesting factor is that they kind of rightfully made it up as they went along. I know you get these books like Harry Potter, and the whole idea is brought up at the beginning and it's continued, and they don't distinguish, they don't change their ideas. But I liked the idea that they did it on the slide. They didn't have it. They didn't have to Scooby what the hell was going to happen. They had to find a way of keeping the series going, and it wasn't realistic to keep changing the actor and to expect people to believe, because obviously nobody wants to play the Doctor the same way. As good as William Hartnell was, nobody wanted to play the Doctor exactly the same way. It was more interesting to change it up a little bit. So somebody came up with this idea of Doctor being alien, you know, an alien race that changed when they died, they regenerated. I think there was an idea that obviously you had the first two Doctors were both in black and white. I mean, Patrick Troughton, William Hartnell, you wouldn't have Doctor Who without him, but also as well you wouldn't have Doctor Who without Patrick Troughton, because it proved that it wasn't going to destroy the show bringing in that actor. It wasn't going to destroy it, and you had some of the greatest things around. I mean, William Hartnell introduced the two probably best villains, Doctor Who villains of the time, in the Cybermen and the Daleks. Because up until, I mean, you had the robots, you had the other things, and obviously you might have other robots, villains against them at rate. But, I mean, probably one of the best and most underrated and underspoken about is the Celestial Tournament. It's one that would probably do with being brought into New Who and see how they go with bringing this character in and seeing what he does, because it's a very interesting concept. The Celestial Toyman. I do like the idea of him. Everything about what made him tick, where he was from, what he was doing, what his whole plan was. I mean, he's got some fantastic episodes of the first Doctor, alien and sort of human. And I don't think any of them suffer for having that mixture. And I think that's probably where, if I had any criticism of New Who, it's probably where it would go. Is the fact that it's too much. Too much in about changing things, but anyway, that's a conversation for a different video. You didn't lose anything with what you were shown in the classic to the modern. Those are challenge games. Anyway, yeah, you wouldn't lose a single thing to. Yeah, you wouldn't have a single thing. Uh-oh, I think I might have overdone this. Yeah, you didn't lose a single thing. Apart from that. But, yeah, it was very, 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 very good. I do like the idea of what they did with yeah. Yeah, so I do like what they did with the classic Who anyway. I'll probably try and I'll give this probably a little bit shorter videos, and I'm rambling a little bit too much. But yeah, everything was good. There was a diversity in it. You had the first female producer. You had the right to start Indian director, which a lot of the time that you think it was November 23rd, 1963. So there wasn't an awful lot of massive diversity around. Things obviously are changing now, but you didn't get that big thing, and Doctor Who really did change up everything. Yeah, it would take a long time before you get a female Doctor. God knows how long that was if you keep working it out and keep on about it. But it would momentarily just be that thing. We'd have the two. You had the granddaughter who was intelligent on there. You had another female who was a teacher who become important roles in certain episodes, like Aztecs, where she was kind of like a goddess kind of thing. She was seen as a goddess. So, and you wouldn't have a lot of that because the way that people were perceived and that the TV liked to perceive people would be sort of semi-risky, and for a company that have made a lot of mistakes. I mean, the BBC can never claim that they haven't messed up over the years when it comes to diversity and equality and things like that. A lot of companies have suffered from the same thing. But anyway, I'm going to leave it here at this part, and then sooner rather than later I'll make a part 2 and talk a little bit more about the second Doctor and a bit more about what's the first Doctor. A little bit more to do with the Hartnell, just kind of a test to see whether I could speak about it, concentration, and I think I failed miserably at times. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will speak to you soon. Bye bye.